In this video, Tesla confirms their full year 2022 production and delivery numbers. I hold myself accountable, revisiting my predictions from a year ago, and I'm not going to lie, I have been dropping some fire content on Patreon recently, but don't take my word for it. Quite possibly your best video in 3 years. Please make a mainstream version for YouTube for the people to see. Sorry guys, not putting this on YouTube, but obviously the sentiment is there. Must be worth watching if this guy or girl is recommending I share this publicly, but it's a little bit too spicy for YouTube. Any chance to make this video available off Patreon? Would recommend to friends. 2 comments in a row. There must be something in this video that people really want to share. But too bad, still remaining exclusive on Patreon, RIP. Your first video of 2023, but you would be doing extremely well to make a more insightful one for the rest of the year. Noticing a recurring theme here. Fucking bomb, 10 out of 10. Getting my money's worth. Great stuff, SMR. The stuff you're talking about and bringing up to people's attention, I'm learning about now in my 60s from guys like you off the internet. I joined your Patreon to thank you for helping me turn around my financial situation. Now I'm staying for the value I get from your excellent videos. Thank you. So in summary, there's no value on my Patreon page. The 260 plus exclusive videos and counting are junk. Don't sign up, because if you did that, well, you'd be like these idiots who obviously aren't getting any value out of Patreon. But if you really do just want to throw your money away, you can join with the card in the corner or the link in the pinned comment. Not going to stop you. So let's cut to the chase. In the fourth quarter, we produced over 439,000 vehicles and delivered over 405,000 vehicles. In 2022, vehicle deliveries grew 40% year over year to 1.31 million, while production grew 47% year over year to 1.37 million. We continued to transition toward a more even regional mix of vehicle builds, which again led to a further increase in cars in transit at the end of the quarter. About 60,000 vehicle discrepancy between production and deliveries. Obviously, a lot of vehicles still in transit. Thank you to all of our customers, employees, suppliers, shareholders, and supporters who helped us achieve a great 2022 in light of significant plague and supply chain related challenges throughout the year. Q4 2022 production and deliveries Model S and X. Just over 20,000 Model S and X produced, deliveries just over 17,000 just in the fourth quarter. Production of Model 3 and Y just in the fourth quarter, almost 420,000, nice. And deliveries, 388,131 for a total, just in Q4 alone, of total production of 439,701 and deliveries just over 400,000, just in Q4. Tesla's already at an annualized rate of production of about 1.75 million units. And this is before Berlin and Austin have meaningfully ramped. For the full year 2022, Model S and X production just over 70,000, deliveries just over 66,000, Model 3 and Y production just under 1.3 million and deliveries about 1.25 million. Grand total for 2022 production, 1,369,611 vehicles and deliveries, 1,313,851. And now, one of my favorite things in the world to say, I was wrong. No, really, I love saying this. It doesn't happen that often, so I'm going to really make the most of this. I was wrong. How wrong? Well, cue clip. Just to be super clear, currently, as I record this, the consensus estimates from all the really smart analysts on Wall Street for how many vehicles Tesla would deliver in the full year 2022 is less than 1.3 million vehicles. My bear case for 22 is 1.526 million units, about 225,000 units above, about 17% above where Wall Street's at in my worst case scenario. Of course, I could be wrong and Wall Street could be right and God could exist. My base case, which I have assigned a 50% probability, is about 1.6 million vehicles delivered in 2022. So the gap between Tesla's actual production for the full year 2022 and my base case estimate around a year ago, as you saw, 227,889 vehicles. That's quite a miss. So let's talk about how this happened in an intellectually honest way. What didn't I account for? I was very confident. I was on the record saying that Wall Street analysts a year ago, literally this point last year, I'm like, if anyone's estimating under 1.5 million units, they should resign in disgrace, and I stand by those comments. Allow me to explain. The things that I didn't account for are things that I just couldn't have predicted. And I personally don't think that making an estimate and then intentionally, arbitrarily reducing your estimate for things that could potentially happen that you can't even imagine makes any sense. It's better to predict what you think's likely than invent scenarios like asteroid impacts and so on and World War III that you can't imagine. Of course, each to their own. If you prefer to have a guess at what you think will happen and then arbitrarily delete numbers just because, hey, something weird might happen that I can't account for, that's totally fine as well, but that's not how I roll. So, what we're going to do is think about the factors that I didn't account for, discuss them, figure out how much production was lost as a result of those, and try to figure out roughly where the estimate would have been if those events didn't occur. That's going to give a more accurate picture of my reasoning and whether I was on point or not. The biggest, of course, I couldn't have in a million years predicted this. The insanity of the Chinese Communist Party. Plague zero. Fucking morons. Absolutely insane. Futile fascist shutdowns. We've seen over the last few years. Disaster. I did not account for Tesla's Shanghai factory being forcibly shut down for the better part of a month this year, or last year, 2022, and losing approximately 100,000 vehicles of production during the shutdown and then also slowly ramping back up. If you guys don't know, If you take a pause in production, you can't just press a magic button and suddenly be producing at your full volume as well. So it's not only the missed production in terms of total shutdown, but then missed production on those slowly ramping back up days, weeks, and months. Give or take about 100,000. So now the discrepancy is about 127,000. The other thing that I failed to account for was the incredible amount of red tape and bureaucracy in Germany. I expected some, but not as much as we saw. The Berlin factory was approximately 8 months late in beginning to ramp up. 8 months. Once again, I just did not account for this. I expected, given the fact that the construction commenced so much earlier than Austin, that at the end of 2022, each of these factories wouldn't be producing about the same number of vehicles per week. But that's the reality. So we can see the lag between Berlin and Austin. It was enormous. Those 8 months of lost ramping at Berlin probably account for somewhere between 100 to maybe 180,000 vehicles of lost production and deliveries. Net, we've now actually exceeded the differential between my estimate and reality, but we're still not done. Something that could have been foreseen and wasn't, I was definitely too optimistic on this, was the slow speed of the 4680 ramp. For those that don't know, the ramp was so fucking slow, Tesla ended up moving equipment from one continent to another because the battery ramp wasn't going as expected. Now this is something you could have estimated. I was definitely too optimistic here. That accounted for a little bit of lost production as well. And the final kicker, the global supply chain challenges. I don't think anyone could have expected the supply chain shock that we're still feeling today after the insane shutdowns during the plague. But here we are. So all things considered, my reasoning was on point. I didn't account for things you couldn't predict, like asteroid impacts, factory shutdowns that I couldn't have imagined in 2022 after I'd already realized the futility of doing so. I clearly underestimated just how bureaucratic and red tape encrusted anything in Germany is. I knew it was like that, but nowhere near as bad as I expected. Live and learn. And I expected at this point the supply chain challenges would be done and dusted. Apparently not. So full accountability here, I was completely wrong, missed by a mile. But if we're intellectually honest about it, look underneath the surface, there's some justification for the massive miss. I'm not making excuses here because the numbers are the numbers, and it was a massive miss, but we do have to be intellectually honest about this. Of course, the reaction from many of the Tesla Q dolts in the comments will be, "You're a moron, man. You were saying Wall Street were dumb if they estimated this, and they were closer than you." That's a fair comment, but we also need to be intellectually honest and say, well, okay, did Wall Street reason that the 4680 ramp would be slower? They might have done. Did they estimate that Berlin would be 8 months behind in ramping up? No, they didn't. Did any of them predict that there'd be a factory shutdown in Shanghai, losing around 100,000 units of production? Not as far as I'm aware. So it's important to understand the reasoning behind the estimates and the factors involved. That being said, I have officially updated my Tesla 2023 production estimates, my valuation model, and my price targets. Check them out on Patreon now. I've actually recorded a video running through all of the estimates to hold myself accountable. So this time next year, every one of my estimates from the beginning of the year is there, set in stone, in video format to keep myself accountable once again. Now, full disclosure, I'm not accounting for any inexplicable events like asteroid impacts, World War III, Elon being, I'm not even going to say it, you know where that was going, members of domestic terrorist organizations claiming to care about certain social justice causes, burning down multiple Tesla factories. Could happen, not accounting for it. I'm not accounting for China invading Taiwan, bombing some chip fab factories. I mean, all these things could happen, but I'm not accounting for them. What I am accounting for is Austin, Berlin continuing to ramp up, the 4680 cell continuing to ramp up, slower than expected. A minimal amount of Cybertruck production for the year, but it's fairly meaningless in the scheme of things. A little bit of additional capacity being eked out at Fremont, likewise in Shanghai. And I'm also expecting a couple of factory announcements as well, but I don't expect any production from those anytime this year, obviously. And again, I just got to say, I love doing this, ready? I was wrong. Very wrong, actually. Like super wrong. But in fairness, I think my reasoning was on point. Now, if you're new around here, in the interest of full disclosure and accountability, in 2019, I predicted that Tesla would exceed 500,000 vehicles delivered. Technically, they missed by about 12 vehicles, give or take, but there was the whole plague thing and the factory shutdowns that I wasn't accounting for. In 2020, I predicted Tesla would deliver around 1 million vehicles. Again, fell short. Clearly, I have a slight optimism bias. So make of that what you will. And if you want to see my 2023 production estimates, head over to Patreon, check them out in the Tesla valuation model. You don't even need access to the valuation model. I've posted a video today for all members running through the estimates. A little bit of a freebie there. If you're a tight ass, you can sign up just as a regular Patreon supporter, watch that video and you'll see everything inside my estimates. Production estimates for all 4 factories, month by month, quarter by quarter, throughout 2023. Gross automotive margin in the bear case, the base case, and so on. Very juicy. And I guarantee you that all of my estimates are going to be wrong. The question is just how wrong? My goal here is to be less wrong over time. I've definitely learned a few things this year, including around German bureaucracy, the insanity of the CCP, the difficulty in ramping up new technology, shout out to the 4680, and that even when I think I'm modeling the worst case scenario, it turns out my optimism bias still clouds my judgment. And speaking of clouded judgment, I may have an obvious optimism bias, but I think Wall Street is suffering from obvious brain damage. let's check out their estimates for Tesla deliveries in the next few years, which as far as I'm aware, don't include any inexplicable, unpredictable events, just their best guess at how many vehicles Tesla will produce, assuming there are no world wars or asteroid impacts or the sun exploding or supervolcanic events and so on. So, Wall Street's collective genius believes that in 2023, in the full year, Tesla will deliver exactly 1.756 million vehicles. Now, if you guys have a very short memory, we just discussed the fact that Tesla's already at an annualized production rate of about 1.75 million units at the end of 2022. There was a minor gap between production and deliveries due to those vehicles being in transit, but spoiler alert, those vehicles get delivered in Q1. So I don't need to worry about that. So can somebody please explain to me, just seriously, explain in the comments below how Wall Street currently consensus estimates are the same as Tesla's annualized rate of production, because if you don't know, they're currently ramping 2 factories, meaning the production at each of those factories will actually increase day after day, week after week, month after month, and quarter after quarter all year. Meaning, obviously, Tesla will produce and deliver more vehicles for the full year than their current annualized rate of production because they have 2 fucking giant factories still ramping up. This is the point that I'm making here. This is the absurdity. I think Wall Street's estimates for 2024, around 2.12 million, is closer to where Tesla will come in 2023. They're about a year off, which is pretty embarrassing. Now again, if there's an asteroid impact, who knows, these estimates might actually be really accurate. You could also argue, well, if there's a crazy global recession and consumers just stop buying vehicles and Tesla doesn't take advantage of their pricing power and decides to just stop making vehicles for a while, sure, this is also possible, but exceedingly unlikely. 2025, Wall Street is expecting Tesla to deliver 2.57 million vehicles, and in 2026, just 3.056 million. I personally don't know what planet these guys are on. Somebody, in the comments, explain to me. How in the fuck is Wall Street consensus today expecting Tesla to do 1.75 million vehicles? I mean, literally, they would need to stop ramping production at Berlin and Austin. Just stop ramping production. Run them at a fraction of their final capacity. It's nonsensical. I don't understand the reasoning behind this, other than brain damage clouding their judgment. But hey, I guess time will tell. They could be right, I could be wrong, and like I said last time, God could exist. Looking forward to seeing how well these comments age. I know you guys will keep me accountable. By the way, guys, I just quickly got to share a really funny story. I've been getting these troll comments after the Tesla stock split took place. There's people looking at old videos where I had EPS estimates for the year who aren't accounting for the stock split, and like, oh, you $12 per, what are you talking about, man? It's nowhere near that, you dumbass. I love being held accountable, and I don't mind the roasting when I'm wrong, but guys, please, I mean, seriously, this is a literal manifestation of the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. Somebody digs up an old video, their estimates are off by a factor of 3 approximately, and instead of their brain going, well, that's how do you possibly miss by that much? Oh, wait, the stock split. Oh. Instead, you're thinking, oh, this guy's so dumb. Oh, come on, guys. I'm not going to name names here, but if you guys want to see, check out my Twitter profile. I actually replied to this one. I'm sure they're going to delete their account and or the tweet in shame soon. But until then, feel free to check it out and have a laugh, because at least you're not that dumb. What's that saying? All's fair in love and roasting? Something like that. F*** it, I'm going to say it again one more time. I was wrong. Wrong. God, it feels good. And finally, speaking of being wrong, because you all will be, but please leave your estimates in the comments below. How many vehicles will Tesla produce and deliver in the full year 2023? And if you really want to go the extra mile, break it down by factory. As I said, I've been dropping a lot of fire content on Patreon, so if you're not a member, I mean, you really are missing out. You saw the testimony. I mean, I'm not the one writing the comments on my videos. My Patreon supporters are, so don't take my word for it. Join Patreon with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment. And remember, just posted a massive update to my Tesla valuation model and price targets, plus 2 exclusive videos today. Yep, just a quiet one for SMR. Did I just talk about myself in the third person? Yeah, that's fucking weird. Anyway, we'll roll with it. See you over on Patreon. Love ya.